Imagine walking into school on a Monday morning and seeing a small green alien standing beside the front desk, holding a clipboard, a laser pointer, and your class schedule upside down. It does not attack. It does not float. It does not reveal the secrets of the universe. It simply looks at your backpack, blinks 3 times, and says that Earth education appears to be a long ritual where young humans carry paper, sit in rectangles, and ask permission to drink water. At first, this feels like an alien problem. But very quickly, the real problem becomes much stranger. Because if aliens opened a school on Earth, the hardest subject would not be space travel. It would be humans. In this strange version of Earth, the school appears almost overnight on the edge of your city. One day there is an empty lot. The next day there is a shiny but slightly confused-looking building shaped like a flying saucer that tried to become a public library. The sign above the door says, "Welcome, students." But the letters are crooked because the aliens learned written English from road signs, cereal boxes, and one very dramatic movie poster. You walk inside and immediately realize that this is not a normal school. The lockers hum softly. The cafeteria has a menu with items like oxygen-friendly soup, moon grain cubes, and one mysterious dish labeled "Safe for most carbon-based teenagers." The principal is a tall blue alien with 6 fingers, kind eyes, and the exhausted expression of someone who has already met parents. The first lesson begins with a simple question: what is a human? And suddenly, the entire room gets quiet, because you thought the aliens were going to teach you about stars, engines, gravity, or how to fold laundry in zero gravity. But the aliens are starting with the one subject everyone assumed was obvious: you. Real science gives a clue here. Before anyone can teach across cultures, species, or languages, they have to understand how the student thinks, communicates, learns, forgets, worries, jokes, and pretends everything is fine while clearly not being fine. On Earth, even human schools struggle with that. Different countries teach differently. Different families expect different behavior. Some students learn better by hearing, some by doing, some by watching, some by making one tiny mistake and then remembering it forever out of pure embarrassment. Now add aliens. The first disaster happens during attendance. The alien teacher calls your name correctly, then calls 3 students by their Wi-Fi names, one by a lunch receipt, and one by what appears to be the emotional smell of their backpack. Nobody knows whether to laugh, correct the teacher, or pretend this is normal, because the alien is holding a glowing stick. Then comes the seating chart. The aliens do not understand why humans line up desks facing one direction. To them, this looks less like learning and more like a very polite waiting room for confusion. They arrange the classroom in a circle, then a spiral, then a floating triangle, then finally give up and let everyone sit wherever they can still see the board without being mildly terrified. This is where the educational problem gets interesting. Human classrooms are not just places where facts are delivered, they are social machines. You learn math, yes, but you also learn when to speak, when to wait, when to raise your hand, when sarcasm is safe, when a silence is awkward, and when the teacher's smile means "good job" or "please stop doing that immediately." Aliens would not automatically understand any of this. A human student looking out the window might be bored, thinking deeply, or just watching a squirrel perform illegal parkour. An alien student might show respect by staring at the ceiling. Another species might listen better while walking in circles. Another might need 3 hours to answer a question because its language requires emotional weather calculations before every sentence. So the alien school would expose something real about education. A school is never just about information. It is also about what a society thinks a good person should look like. On Earth, that idea changes depending on place, time, culture, and history. Some schools reward silence, some reward debate, some reward speed, some reward carefulness. Some treat mistakes as failure, others treat mistakes as part of learning. If aliens opened a school on Earth, they would accidentally reveal how many invisible rules humans carry around without noticing them. And then comes lunch. Lunch would be chaos. The alien cafeteria staff would try very hard to respect Earth diets. They would study biology. They would avoid poison. They would label everything. They would still make mistakes because human food culture is unbelievably strange from the outside. You eat fermented milk. You drink roasted bean water to become socially functional. You put spicy chemicals on food for pleasure. You celebrate birthdays by setting dessert on fire. An alien observing the cafeteria might conclude that humans are a brave species with a casual relationship to danger and cheese. But food is not just biology. Food is memory, family, identity, comfort, culture. A sandwich can mean routine. Soup can mean home. A snack can mean survival during a long afternoon when the clock is moving at the speed of a sleepy planet. If aliens ignored that, their school would fail, no matter how advanced the technology was. So they would learn, slowly. They would stop serving perfect nutrition cubes and start offering recognizable meals, even if they privately believed pizza was a mathematical accident. They would discover that a student who feels safe learns better than a student who feels like a laboratory sample with homework. This is one of the first big truths the alien school would teach. Learning is not only about the lesson, it is about the environment around the lesson. Lighting matters, noise matters, sleep matters, stress matters, trust matters. A classroom can have the best technology in the galaxy, but if you feel watched, rushed, judged, or hungry, your attention collapses like a cheap folding chair. The aliens would probably be shocked by how much Earth School depends on bells. A bell rings and everyone moves. Another bell rings and everyone stops. From space, this might look like a herd migration controlled by tiny metal screams. The aliens might ask why humans divide curiosity into 45-minute blocks. You would explain schedules, transportation, staffing, building rules, and the ancient sacred law of someone needing the gym at 10:30. The aliens would nod politely, and then design a system that changes lessons based on energy, attention, and progress. At first, this sounds amazing. No more sitting through a lecture when your mind has become mashed potatoes. No more moving on just because the clock says so. No more pretending every student in the room needs the same explanation at exactly the same speed. But then a new problem appears. Fairness. If every student gets a different lesson, how do you compare them? If one student learns algebra through rockets and another learns it through music, are they being treated equally or just differently? If the alien system adapts constantly, who checks that it is not quietly making bad assumptions? This matters because technology is never neutral just because it looks shiny. A futuristic school could help students beautifully. It could also sort them too early, label them too quickly, or decide that one bad Tuesday proves you are not a science person. The aliens might have perfect computers, but they still need human wisdom. They need teachers who notice context. They need students who can speak up. They need parents who ask annoying but necessary questions. That is when the alien teachers discover the most powerful force in Earth education. The parent email. No laser shield can stop it. No space treaty can contain it. The principal opens one message asking why the homework was confusing, and by midnight there are 17 follow-ups, 2 attached screenshots, a paragraph beginning with all due respect, and one family demanding to know whether moon grain cubes are gluten-free. The aliens survive the cafeteria. They barely survive the parents. But they do begin to understand something important. School is where a whole society argues about the future in the form of children. Every homework policy, every test, every dress code, every field trip, every rule about phones is secretly a question about what kind of world people are preparing you for. If aliens opened a school, their biggest mistake might be assuming education is simply the transfer of knowledge from an older mind to a younger one. It is not. Education is preparation for uncertainty, and a school run by aliens would be the ultimate uncertainty machine. You would learn astronomy from someone who has seen another sky. You would learn communication from creatures whose faces do not make human expressions. You would learn ethics by asking whether it is rude to teleport out of a boring conversation. You would learn history by realizing your planet is not the whole story, even though it is still the only home you know how to miss. The students would change too. At first, Everyone would treat the alien school like a spectacle. Videos would spread online. Someone would film a robot hall monitor slipping on spilled pudding. Someone would rank alien teachers by how likely they are to understand memes. Someone would start a rumor that the gym class includes asteroid dodgeball, which would be false, then true, then banned. But after the novelty fades, the stranger change would be quieter. You would get used to difference. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough that a purple exchange student with 3 elbows stops being a headline and becomes the person who borrows your pencil and never returns it. That is the counterintuitive twist. The most futuristic part of alien school would not be the floating desks or the space maps. It would be the ordinary moments. A human and an alien complaining about homework. A robot trying to understand why group projects create so much emotional damage. A teacher from another planet discovering that stickers somehow motivate Earth children and, strangely, some adults. A classroom where the universe becomes huge, and then, 5 minutes later, someone still forgets their password. This is funny, but it is also serious. Humans often imagine first contact as a giant event, a spaceship in the sky, a speech to the world, a dramatic moment where everyone looks upward and realizes history has changed. But maybe the real test would be smaller. Could you share a classroom? Could you learn from someone who does not understand your jokes, your food, your body language, your holidays, or your weird habit of saying fine when you are absolutely not fine? Could you explain yourself without assuming that your way is the default way? Because that is what the alien school would really teach. Perspective. You would see ordinary human life from the outside. Backpacks would look strange. Tests would look strange. Morning announcements would look extremely strange. The entire idea of making tired teenagers sit indoors while sunlight exists outside would require a formal investigation. And the aliens would be right to ask questions. Why do students learn so much about passing tests and sometimes so little about handling money, conflict, boredom, fear, attention, kindness, or failure? Why does every generation say young people are the future, then give them chairs that feel like they were designed by a villain? Why do humans treat curiosity like a natural resource, then sometimes bury it under worksheets? The alien school would not have perfect answers. It would create new problems, misunderstandings, bad translations, strange cafeteria smells, a teleportation incident involving the drama club, at least one science fair project that accidentally becomes a small moon. But the school would force Earth to admit something. Learning has always been a little alien. Every time you learn something difficult, you enter a world where the rules do not make sense yet. You feel clumsy. You guess wrong. You misunderstand. You ask a question that sounds obvious to everyone else. Then, slowly, the strange becomes familiar. That is education. Not the removal of confusion, the transformation of confusion into a map. So if aliens opened a school on Earth, the first weeks would be ridiculous. The lockers would hum, the lunch would be suspicious. The teachers would misread sarcasm as a medical emergency. The gym rules would require a safety waiver, a helmet, and possibly a small treaty. But after a while, something beautiful might happen. You would stop asking why they are so strange, and you would start asking why you ever thought normal was simple. Because from far enough away, every school on Earth is already a little mysterious. Small humans gather in rooms, draw symbols, memorize stories, practice rules, test each other, form friendships, survive awkward lunches, and slowly become people who can carry a world forward. Add aliens, and the building gets weirder. But the purpose stays familiar. You are still trying to understand your place in a universe that refuses to be small. You are still trying to become less confused than you were yesterday. You are still walking into a classroom, holding your backpack, hoping the day makes a little more sense by the time the final bell rings. And somewhere near the front desk, the small green alien looks at your schedule upside down again, blinks 3 times, and writes 1 note on the clipboard. Humans are difficult, but they are learning.